What if Palpatine planted an inhibitor chip inside Anakin? In Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine executes Order 66, which turns the clones against the Republic and causes the end of the Jedi Order. While Palpatine was able to turn Anakin to the dark side naturally, what if this wasn't the case? And what if he planted an inhibitor chip inside the Chosen One so that he could control him whenever he wanted? How would that change the Star Wars timeline we all know and love today? Let's start today's story when Anakin is 13 years old. He has been training for 4 years at this point and has become a proficient Jedi. Chancellor Palpatine is pleased with his progress, having poised Anakin as the future of the Sith and the key to his grand plan. Palpatine took Anakin on various excursions during his youth. He taught him the world as he saw it, dark, pessimistic, and bleak. He always told Anakin that people are selfish and never to be trusted. He was manipulating the boy, but one time when Anakin was 13, he and Palpatine went on their outings to the lower levels of Coruscant. When Anakin wasn't looking, Palpatine injects him with a sedative which makes him unconscious and takes Anakin to a secret facility on the lower levels of Coruscant. There he is met by Nala Se and a group of Kaminoan scientists who implant an inhibitor chip into his prefrontal cortex section of Anakin's brain. The scientists calibrated the inhibitor chip to answer to Order 67, which gave Palpatine the power to control Anakin whenever he pleased. Whenever he says the words Order 67, Anakin is completely under Palpatine's will, almost like mind control. Additionally, Order 67 has a memory condition whereby every time Anakin is no longer under Palpatine's control, his memory is wiped and he doesn't know what happened. When Anakin awoke, Palpatine sent him on his way and assured that the boy fell when they were walking. But Palpatine's plan was now in motion. After this moment, Palpatine took a step back from Anakin. Now that Palpatine knows he can have Anakin under his control whenever he pleases, he doesn't need to spend time manipulating him. Instead, he needs to increase his power. As time goes on, Anakin is less conflicted. Without Palpatine's constant manipulation, his light side connection is stronger. He's still passionate and breaks the rules, but his fear and dreams about Padme are quieter. He confides in Obi-Wan more, and overall just becomes a better and more traditional Jedi. Throughout Anakin's teenhood, Palpatine slowly works to build up Anakin's power. Hey guys, we're launching our exclusive Black Friday sale at Fantasy Sabers, where all our deluxe replicas including Anakin, Obi-Wan, Luke and Darth Vader are the cheapest they've ever been. These have been our most popular sabers to date and are the cheapest you'll find them across any saber store. We really appreciate all the support you have given us towards Fantasy Sabers, so this is for those who have been wanting a saber for yourself or potentially as a Christmas gift. We're also giving away a free The Chosen One Anakin Deluxe replica with every order over $249 cart value. Don't miss out on this 1 week only sale. Now back to the video. When Anakin was 16, the Chancellor went to the Jedi Council and requested to bring Anakin as part of his security team to a diplomatic mission to Naboo. The Council had no reason to reject the Chancellor, nor any suspicions of him at this point, so they accepted. On Naboo, Palpatine takes Anakin to his old family home on the outskirts of Theed, where he executes Order 67 for the first time. This brings the young Jedi under the control of Sidious. Palpatine tells Anakin that every time he is under his control, he must forget the name Anakin, for he is Vader, a Sith Lord. Together they train in the dark side. Palpatine used this brief training exercise to channel Vader's hatred. He had the boy practice force choke on Gungans that he captured, refining his skills slowly. They were on Naboo for about a week and trained constantly. Palpatine was astonished by Vader's raw power. By the end of the week, Anakin and Palpatine sparred, and the Chosen One was able to hold his own against Sidious in one-on-one combat. As they fought, Vader switched between using Form 5 and throwing tree stumps from the ground, all the way to attempting to choke Palpatine and using the Force to make the grass beneath Palpatine catch on fire. The difference here is that Order 67 takes the emotion away from Anakin. He doesn't think, he acts. He makes a calculated decision and doesn't run a moral back check in his mind. This was unprecedented, and Palpatine knew that with the proper training, Vader would become an extremely powerful Sith Lord. They return to Coruscant and life continues as normal. Over the following years, Palpatine executes Order 67 on Anakin a few times, but he understands that he has to avoid suspicion from the Council. When the Clone Wars began, Palpatine was able to get more time alone with Anakin, since Skywalker was often assigned to accompany the Chancellor as he traveled throughout the Outer Rim. During these excursions, Palpatine taught Vader Force Lightning, which the emotionless Anakin mastered quickly. The Clone Wars brought Anakin to the forefront of Republic popularity. He took on Ahsoka as an apprentice, and in this timeline, her training was more traditional and less brash. Anakin had a complete life. He had his best friend Obi-Wan, apprentice Ahsoka, and most importantly, Padme. His relationship with Padme in this timeline was far healthier. Without Palpatine's manipulation, Anakin learned not to let his emotions control him. He still loved Padme deeply, but also understood the realities and limits of life. All of this helped him grow into a stronger, more balanced Jedi. Palpatine's final test of Anakin's dark side abilities came during the 3rd year of the Clone Wars. Maul and Savage's crime syndicate on Mandalore was beginning to interfere with the Separatist war effort. Small groups within the Shadow Collective had started to clash with droid forces on outlying worlds. These fights didn't affect the core of the war yet, but Sidious understood Maul's ambition. If left unchecked, Maul would soon try to position himself as a 3rd major player in the conflict, something that would completely disrupt Palpatine's grand plan. Therefore, Palpatine executes Order 67 and sends Anakin to Mandalore. He wore a hood to conceal his identity, but the second he entered the planet, the Dathomirian brothers could sense his dark presence. Anakin tells the brothers that his master sends his regards, but cites that Sidious was impressed that Maul had survived. Maul scoffed and reminisced that he was destined for greatness, and his path would only lead him to the Emperor's throne. All 3 of them ignite their lightsabers and attack. The chosen one was no longer Anakin, he was Vader, a completely different person. The Force users swung back and forth with all of their might. Vader used the Force to break the large window and direct its shards towards the brother, hitting Savage in the arm and causing him to drop his double-bladed saber. He sneered in pain, but before he could regain his composure, Vader threw his saber directly into Savage's chest. Maul screamed and tried to hit Vader whilst he was defenseless, but the emotionless Sith conjured Savage's saber to defend himself. Vader now fought with the double-bladed saber, and he was profusely powerful. Maul stood no chance. Despite igniting the dark saber, Vader's force powers were far superior, and he overwhelmed Maul, slicing through his defenses and killing him. When Vader returned unscathed, Palpatine knew that he was ready. His training in the dark side was complete, and he was far more powerful than any other Jedi. Soon after, Dooku would be killed on the Invisible Hand, and Sidious had all the pieces in place for the final stage of his plan. All he needed to do was engineer the populace and Senate to blame the war on the Jedi and believe them traitors so that he can exterminate them. Therefore, he orchestrates a plan. Palpatine invites Anakin and members of the Jedi Council who were on Coruscant at the time to his office. Anakin, Yoda, Windu, Plo Koon, Ki-Adi-Mundi and Kit Fisto arrive at Palpatine's office. They believe this was a meeting about the war, but as they entered, Palpatine pressed a button beneath his desk which activated the security cameras, and he rose from his chair. He asked the Masters who they believed the Sith Lord was. This caught the Council off guard, who had never discussed such a matter with the Chancellor before. Palpatine continued, pondering that if they had to take a guess, who would they say? Windu responded that it was Jedi business, and their suspicions will be kept internal. Palpatine smirked, noting they had someone in mind. The Jedi looked at each other uneasily. Palpatine let the silence stretch and hinted that the truth had been right in front of them all along. He walks over to one of his many vases, where he summons the hilt of a lightsaber. Plo and Fisto ignite their sabers immediately. Yoda asks why he is telling them now, to which Palpatine says the time felt right. Windu announces that he is under arrest, and Palpatine's sinister cackle takes over the room. As they began to advance towards him, Palpatine knew he had them right where he wanted. The video would show the Jedi Council igniting their lightsabers as they aggressively approach the Chancellor of the Republic. Just before they reach him, Palpatine locks eyes with Anakin and he mutters the words, execute Order 6-7. The council turns around in confusion as Anakin raises his hand and lifts Mace Windu into the air as he grabs his throat. And before anyone else can do anything, Anakin fires the strongest blast of Force lightning ever conjured, killing Windu immediately. The Jedi were unbelievably shocked. None of them could understand what they were seeing. Palpatine ignites his red lightsaber and joins Vader as they both engage the council. Palpatine struck first, rushing at Kit Fisto and forcing him back. Vader swung at Ki-Adi-Mundi and knocked him to one knee. At this point, Plo Koon moved to protect him, but Palpatine shot lightning into Plo's mask, cracking it and slowing him. Fisto tried to attack Palpatine, but Vader grabbed Mundi's fallen lightsaber and threw it across the room, hitting Fisto in the back and killing him. Plo charged, but Vader kicked him into the wall, and Palpatine stabbed him before he could stand. Mundi tried to crawl away, but Vader stabbed him through the chest. Yoda fought the two of them alone, blocking blow after blow until Palpatine blasted the floor with lightning and knocked him off balance. Vader lifted Yoda with the Force and slammed him into a pillar. The Grandmaster fell and hit the floor, and Palpatine walked over and stabbed him, ending the fight. There was nothing in Vader's eyes, no emotion, no love, nothing. He was a pure machine, a human robot who simply obeyed. From here, Palpatine executes Order 66 and Anakin goes to the Jedi Temple. This was not Nightfall Anakin, it was a cold-blooded Sith, Darth Vader, hell-bent on destroying the Jedi. Across the galaxy, Order 66 turns all the clones against the Jedi and the Order is decimated. Just like in the original timeline, Kenobi narrowly escapes the 212th when they turned on him. At the same time, Ahsoka was with Rex. The moment Order 66 activated, Rex tried to fight it but struggled, just as he had before. Ahsoka recognized there was something wrong and managed to restrain him long enough to remove his inhibitor chip, following the same steps she used in Season 7 of the Clone Wars. Once the chip was out, Rex came back to himself. Back on Coruscant, Anakin completed the purge with no regret. There wasn't a living Jedi still alive on Coruscant. Padme watched horrified from their apartment. She had to find her husband to know he was okay. She tracked him down and found Anakin standing alone near the Senate landing platform. When he turned to see her, she saw immediately that something was wrong. His face was the same, his voice was the same, but his eyes were empty. There was no warmth, no recognition, no hesitation. He answered her questions with short, blunt responses, and every word he spoke sounded like he was repeating something he had been told to say. When she tried to touch his arm, he stepped back and told her he had a mission from the Chancellor, then walked away without looking back. Padme stood there for a moment, realizing that whatever she saw in him was not her husband. It was someone else, someone being controlled. She left the platform and contacted Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Senator Bail Organa. The three of them met aboard Bail's cruiser, away from the eyes and ears of Coruscant. Padme told them exactly what she saw, how Anakin spoke like he wasn't thinking for himself, and how his eyes had nothing behind them. Ahsoka listened carefully, thinking back to the moment Rex turned on her. Obi-Wan paced while Padme talked, trying to understand how Anakin could change that suddenly. In this timeline, Anakin wasn't the same emotional kid from Revenge of the Sith. He had mastered his emotions. None of them could understand how he could be perfect one second and then a completely different person the next. When Padme finished, Rex spoke up. He explained how every clone had an inhibitor chip that forced them to follow an order without question, and how the chip had controlled him until Ahsoka removed it. He said that what Padme described matched what he remembered before his chip came out. If the clones had chips, Rex said, then maybe Anakin had one too, planted without anyone ever knowing. The room went quiet as they processed it. If Rex was right, then Anakin wasn't acting on his own at all. He was being controlled, just like the clones were. And if that was the truth, then they still had a chance to save him. Rex tells them the chips must have been planted during their inception, meaning if Anakin had a chip, they should find records of it on Kamino. Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Rex and Padme traveled to Kamino immediately to discover the truth. When they arrived, they were greeted by Nala Se and asked to see any records related to inhibitor chips. Nala Se led them to the facility and brought them into a restricted room where several data consoles stored the medical files of every clone ever produced. As they began searching through the reports, Prime Minister Lama Su quietly stepped out and contacted Darth Sidious, informing him that the four of them were asking questions they were not meant to ask. Sidious immediately passed the message on to Vader, ordering him to go to Kamino and remedy their survival. Anakin left without hesitation, flying straight towards them. Inside the restricted room, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Rex and Padme began pulling up every file connected to the inhibitor chip program. At first, it looked identical to what Rex had already been through, just standard clone control protocols. But deeper in the system, Ahsoka found a separate folder marked with a restricted access code. As Ahsoka wasn't a Jedi any longer, she forced Nala Se to input the passcode into the folder, opening it and revealing a special protocol called Vader. This revealed the Kaminoans had designed a unique chip for Anakin years earlier, hidden under a medical procedure the Jedi had approved without realizing what it actually was. The report explained this chip allowed the initiator full control over Anakin's actions, overriding his thoughts, emotions, and judgment. It also stated that once the control ended, the subject's memories would wipe themselves to prevent any resistance. Rex told the others that this confirmed everything Padme had seen. Anakin wasn't acting on his own. This also meant they had a chance to bring him back if they could remove the chip before the memory wipe was complete. For the first time since Coruscant, the group felt a small spark of hope. But before they could read any further, the room's doors slammed shut. As they all spun around, Anakin stood alone, igniting his sapphire lightsaber. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka moved first, rushing at Anakin while Rex fired from behind them, trying to avoid hitting his general. As they fought, both Obi-Wan and Ahsoka kept calling out to him, telling him that he was under control, that none of this was his fault, that the chip was forcing his actions. Rex shouted the same, begging Anakin to listen and remember who they were, but nothing reached him. Order 67 held him completely, and every word they said fell against a mind that was no longer his. Obi-Wan tried one last time to break through, lowering his blade for a moment and telling Anakin he wasn't alone, but Anakin cut him down without hesitation. The three of them were shocked. Anakin was given a split-second opportunity, and it was like there was no thought process, just an innate reaction. Ahsoka continued to fight her master, but her strength was completely overpowered by the ferocious Vader, who destroyed both her sabers before stabbing her in the chest. Rex kept fighting until Anakin closed the distance and kills him with a single blow. The room fell silent except for Padme's screams. She collapsed to her knees as she watched the three of them fall, realizing they had all come so close to saving him, but had ultimately failed. Anakin turned to her, but he didn't kill her. Palpatine had requested Padme to remain alive. He wanted the children of Skywalker for himself. From here, the Empire was created, and the Republic was an old relic of the past. Padme was sentenced to life imprisonment, where she would never see the light of day again. After Padme gave birth, Anakin carried her back to her cell. She was weak, crying, and begging to see her children, but Anakin didn't respond. He sat her down on the small bed and stepped back as the door began to close. Padme reached out through the gap, screaming his name, pleading with him to stop, to remember who he was. Anakin kept walking, expression empty, the chip holding him in place, but Padme didn't stop. She shouted at him, asking what his mother would think, what Shmi Skywalker would say if she saw the man he had become. Anakin stopped. For a moment, he didn't breathe. Slowly, he turned towards her, and Padme saw something shift in his face. Anakin's yellow eyes faded back to blue. Hey guys, we're launching our exclusive Black Friday sale at Fantasy Sabers, where all our deluxe replicas, including Anakin, Obi-Wan, Luke, and Darth Vader, are the cheapest they've ever been. These have been our most popular sabers to date and are the cheapest you'll find them across any saber store. We really appreciate all the support you have given us towards Fantasy Sabers, so this is for those who have been wanting a saber for yourself or potentially as a Christmas gift. We're also giving away a free The Chosen One Anakin Deluxe replica with every order over $249 cart value. Don't miss out on this 1 week only sale. Now back to the video.